In Brad Stevens, the Boston Celtics plucked out one of the game's best coaches. Few head coaches make the jump from the NCAA to the NBA. Most college coaches successful and/or talented enough to be in the running to do so, it shouldn't be an or, but it can be, usually have little incentive to give their college gig up. There is a big difference in talent level both player and coach-wise between the two leagues, yet not so much between levels of prestige if done well. The best college coaches are still just as famous as the best NBA coaches, and make just as much money at the very top of their respective levels. There is also a much greater chance of tenure. And, if you are particularly legendary, a chance at an Olympic medal. When college coaches do make the step up, it more often than not does not go well. Amongst those who have made the leap in the last 30 years include John Calipari, Rick Pitino, Jerry Tarkanian, Tim Floyd, Mike Montgomery, Reggie Theus, Lon Kruger and Leonard Hamilton, none of whom distinguished themselves, and while P.J. Carlesimo had a few playoff seasons with the Portland Trail Blazers, he got fired for not being able to get over the hump. Even fewer make the leap with any kind of real success. It is not a coincidence that the most successful college-to-pros head coaches in history Bill Fitch, Cotton Fitzsimmons, Jack Ramsey, Dick Motta, Fred Scouse and Joel Apchik are from way back in the day. The NBA has been on an information revolution that the college game, with its love of the archaic and the fundamental principles from which it will never deviate, is behind on. And the always tough to overcome gap between the two is now wider than ever. Brad Stevens is the exception all that. Stevens was hired by Butler University as an operations coordinator in the 2000 off-season, becoming assistant coach 1 year later, and then the head coach 6 years after that. 6 years after that, and despite signing multiple contract extensions that ultimately saw him bound to Butler, at least theoretically, until 2022, Stevens left for the NBA, hired by the Celtics in the summer of 2013, in the midst of the reload. Stevens' quick ascent to the top of the college game did not go unnoticed. Multiple big-name college programs came after him, hence the constant extensions with Butler, who needed to keep the man who had taken the two Sweet 16 performances that Todd Lickliter led them to back in 2003 and turned deep Bulldog postseason runs into a regular occurrence. When Lickliter left in 2007, Butler's players, familiar with Stevens after his 6 years as an assistant with the team, petitioned for Stevens to get the job over any outside candidate or any other internal promotion. And nowadays, Lickliter now works for Stevens as a regional scout for the Celtics. Serendipitous, yes, but not coincidental. Stevens did not lift Butler to prominence single-handedly, Thad Matta had started the process, and Lickliter took the team as far as the Sweet 16. But what Stevens did do was take it further still, to a level such a relatively small program should not be able to reach. Instilling what is known as the Butler Way, a mantra for the basketball team's attitude dating back to the late 1980s, Stevens took the Bulldogs to 5 tournament appearances in his 6 years, including back-to-back title games. For what was then a mid-major team, this was a spectacular achievement. The Butler Way describes an ideology of teamwork built around 5 guiding principles: humility, passion, unity, servanthood and thankfulness. Stevens recruited accordingly, targeting players who had been overlooked by the bigger programs, yet whose commitment to team play and strong sense of basketball intangibles could lead to them becoming key parts of a team that would be greater than the sum of its parts. And it worked. Butler became the program that they did without the recruiting power or star names of their peers, knocking many of them out on the way. It is true to say that in Gordon Hayward and Shelvin Mack, Stevens did have 2 multi-year NBA players at his disposal, one of whom is a star in Hayward, who equally serendipitously and equally not coincidentally is back with Stevens in Boston. Yet it is also true to say that Stevens helped make them into such. Now flanked with stars, Stevens' ascent to the top of the NBA is almost as fast as his ascent to the top of the college ranks. He practices the same ideals as he did when honoring the Butler Way, but does not preach them. Stevens is not preachy, proselytizing or shouty. He is if anything a facilitator.